All right, we've got people focusing on a whole bunch of different stuff regarding Brock Purdy as 49ers OTAs are now mere days away. But the biggest people need to be focused on regarding this contract, what the 49ers and Purdy must be doing moving forward, is a look at his next contract because this first one was built with the next one in mind. We have the entire analysis up on the San Francisco Standard, but I think that the most important piece of it is this right here. We're looking at the cash flow for Purdy over the course of his entire deal, lumped into fully guaranteed money, rolling guaranteed money, and total guaranteed money, with a sell here, one of the vesting dates shaded in red, and that vesting date is April 1st, 2027. To me, that is the most important single date of this contract, and it confirms what I sensed entering this entire negotiation as far as timing goes. It confirms what I sensed entering this entire negotiation as far as timing, and that is that 2028 is the new deal target year for Brock Purdy. The reason that we need to talk about this right now is because this frames everything when we look into 2025 and 2026. And if this April 1st, 2027 date, this trigger date happens after only 2 seasons for Brock Purdy under this new deal. If he does succeed, and I think there is a lot of data indicating that he will, 2028 is going to lock in with 55.1 million in rolling guarantees turning into full guarantees, and the 49ers and Purdy will both be incentivized to rework the deal or just create an entire new one. And I think that the latter option is more likely in 2028 when the cap hit rises to $57.6 million. So the proper way to look at this contract is 3 years for the 49ers to have Brock Purdy at a cap hit of less than $31 million, including $9.1 million this year. And then a true chance for Purdy to cash in with the 49ers wanting that to happen in 2028. So the biggest underlying fact to all of this is that Brock Purdy has undoubtedly, unquestionably been a top 5 performer over his first 3 seasons in the league. And the reason that I bring this up is because if he continues at this trajectory, then that 2028 inflection will certainly be a time for a new contract for Brock Purdy. And so many people are looking at the term of this through 2030 and not really, I think, understanding the big picture and the mechanics behind this deal. These things are meant to be renegotiated early. If things go well for both parties, you want to come back to the negotiating table far ahead of time. We saw it with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills just a couple months ago, and I think that the 49ers and Purdy need to aim for that now. Now, I think this is a refresher that is very, very necessary because many people after this contract have, for some reason, they've gone back to pre-existing narratives because they were wrong about the contract. They didn't think that Brock Purdy was going to get top-tier quarterback money, but he did. He has obviously earned top-tier quarterback money. He's in the upper right with the other big names here. This is efficiency and accuracy. We're going to judge all quarterbacks on the same scale of efficiency and accuracy, and Purdy more than holds his own. This is his career. Green is good, red is bad. This is every single game illustrated really well by SF Data Niners. There have only been a handful of below-average games. Some quarterbacks have entire seasons that are painted in red here. For Brock Purdy, it's been only a few games. Take a look at his first 40 games. Only Patrick Mahomes has been better. And this is something that includes Peyton Manning, Lamar Jackson, Tony Romo, who had a great start to his career. So anyway, the reason we put this up is because We need to figure out how a continuation of Brock Purdy's current pace, this kind of efficiency, and even last year he dropped only to around number 7 in the advanced quarterback metrics, so he's still at the top of the pack. So if he continues doing this over 2025, over 2026, what does that mean for 2027 and beyond? Well, it means that there's going to be a new contract in 2028. So much focus on the potential downside, even though the chances of the worst case scenario in this deal for Purdy and the 49ers hitting are truly negligible, and so little focus on what the actual goal is in this contract. And there's just been this big distortion when everybody's saying, oh, is he worth this? Is he worth that? Is this a 2-year deal? Is this some kind of prove it scenario for Brock Purdy? Well, first of all, this would be the first prove it deal in the history of the NFL that has fully guaranteed money, over 10 million of it bleeding into year 3 of the contract. Back to this illustration right here. This is the top is the fully guaranteed money. As you can see, 2027 has fully guaranteed money. So this is not a prove it deal. Prove it deal is a 1-year deal without any guarantees, where a player hopes to earn more beyond that. Purdy has got 2+ seasons. So he's got 3 seasons of full guarantees. That third one in 2027, that's going to see a vesting date in 2026 of 15.3 more million guaranteed. So the contract is strong up front and 100 million fully guaranteed, but it hits a tipping point in 2027 where we're going to see that 2028 money roll in, and there's a big amount of it, 55.1 million. And that to me is what, we're entering OTAs this week. We're going to cover the 49ers taking the practice field again. We're going to cover the buildup to this 2025 season. We're going to cover, will they get better separation this year? Will the return of Christian McCaffrey be a big boost to San Francisco? Will the improvement of the defense, the presumable improvement of the defense with Robert Saleh as the defensive coordinator, is that going to help the offense play on more even ground than it did in 2024? So everything that we ask about the 49ers as they try to dig themselves out of the 6-11 campaign in 2024, everything that we discuss needs to be pivoted and aimed toward the future, because they're trying to build something in the long term and try to build it sustainably. And 2028 is that inflection point in the future that will be determined a year ahead of time in 2027. So if Purdy is good enough to trigger the April 1st, 2027 vesting of a full guarantee into 2028, that will set this up for a new contract in 2028. And we'll see where the 49ers are with the surrounding roster at that point. Fascinating stuff. The deal has been analyzed. I'm really happy that we get to turn the page on this now. That's my favorite graphic from the deal because I think it illustrates the cash flow well. It's rather complex with the rolling guarantees and the total guarantees and the full guarantees. So you can go ahead and check that out. The link is in the description. And you know what? I could also go ahead and toss it into the comment section, because you know what? I'm headed to the comment section right now. Memorial Day. We're having a good time. Off of work today, I would hope, for a lot of you. And you can go ahead and check out the Brock Purdy contract breakdown up on the San Francisco Standard. So there you go. It is down there at the bottom of the screen. So questions, let's delve into them. And maybe we can talk a little bit about the president's race yesterday in Washington, D.C. That was actually my fault with the audio a little bit earlier. I hear you guys complaining about it. I had another video playing in the background, even though it was muted on the speaker. The streaming software, for some reason, doesn't like another video playing in the background. When I have multiple tabs open, sometimes I lose sight of the fact that we've got something else on YouTube playing. So That is taken care of. It is closed. We're ready to answer some questions and go from there. Would I consider doing a show on the type of seasons 49ers players have had after signing a new contract? Sure. Do we really need to do a show, or can we just go through it right now? Every single player has at some point signed a contract with the 49ers, right? To be able to take the field. So I'm assuming you're talking about new bigger deals or re-signings. There have been players who have had good seasons. There have been players who have had worse seasons after the contract. I think typically the expectation in sports is that players coming off of big lucrative re-signings don't typically perform as well, but there may also be some bias in perception when it comes to that. I think of the ones that were holdouts, those are the ones where you see the performance truly adversely affected for obvious reasons, because those particular players didn't get the practice that they had gotten in years prior, right? When they were still working toward that new contract. So obviously Brandon Ayuk, that wasn't good last season. And then he got hurt in week 7 against the Kansas City Chiefs. The season before, Nick Bosa wasn't the defensive player of the year anymore after he signed his contract, and he had been a defensive player of the year prior. I think that the holdout and the lack of practice caused him to take a little longer to find his stride, but he was still a really, really impactful player the year after he signed his contract. He just wasn't quite at the level that he had been the year before. You go back to Deebo Samuel, obviously not as good in 2022 as he had been in 2021 for the 49ers, but you could also go back to George Kittle, and you could go back to Fred Warner, and those are two guys who didn't skip a beat after signing their contract extensions for the 49ers. Kittle was just fine early in that 2020 season. I mean, he was absolutely dominant after signing his contract extension. He just got hurt around week 8 in Seattle. I think it was a broken foot. And Fred Warner was awesome throughout, even after signing in 2021. Dre Greenlaw, great throughout, even after re-signing with the 49ers. I think that was it in 2022 that he re-signed? It was a few years ago, because it was a shorter extension for Dre Greenlaw. So you've got examples of players who were fine, and I think the delineation there was holdout versus no holdout. And the great news for the 49ers this time around is that these guys didn't hold out. They got this done in May. Kittle, Brock Purdy, and Fred Warner. Kittle, Brock Purdy, and Fred Warner, all these contracts done well ahead of OTAs. OTAs begin this next week, and now we get to kick back, relax, and see how the 49ers actually practice as an entire team over the course of this offseason with a little bit of extra rest, and then everybody's going to circle the wagons and be back in late July for training camp. So, if you want to look at how different players did after their contracts, feel free to, but make sure to contextualize which ones missed training camp and which ones got their deals done earlier and didn't miss training camp. And the focus for Brock Purdy throughout all of this was to be there for his team during OTAs, and I think that's going to have positive benefits for the 49ers. Brandon wants to understand how cap acceleration works when a player is released. Okay, well, let's just look at Brock Purdy's contract as an example, since you say I could put whoever I want, because that's the one that I have right now. So we're going to put this contract up on the screen. So the 49ers and the Eagles, especially, other teams are doing it too. We'll see how long the NFL continues allowing this. But teams have put money into what we call void years. And you could see Purdy here has money moving into void years into 2031 and 2032. He actually has money going into 2032. I think it's $7 million into 2031 and $4 million into 2032. But I just combine it all into this 11 million in 2031. Say that Purdy's contract expires after 2030. Say that they don't renew this contract. Say that 2018 inflection doesn't happen. Then they'll still have some salary cap money that they'll have to owe because it's already been paid to Brock Purdy at that point. And it will have to hit the salary cap earlier. So it'll hit as dead money. So any money parked into void years, as you can see here, the 49ers have money parked into void years. It's 4 plus 4 plus 3, by the way. So it's 11 million. 4 plus 4 plus 3 is 11. Any money parked into void years that has not hit the salary cap at the point of a player's contract terminating has to hit the salary cap at the point of termination. So that's what money hitting in void year, or money accelerating to hit from the void years, looks like. That's why, a team like the 49ers, you don't worry about their dead money. You don't worry about the Eagles' dead money. Both of those teams have a very high dead money bill. It's because they've intentionally pushed cap money into void years in the future. They've known that money is going to turn into dead money at some point. They just don't want to pay that bill now. And if there's no charge in paying it later, which there isn't because salary cap space rolls over from season to season, there's not an interest charge on this. It makes a whole lot of sense. It's a hack that teams like the 49ers and the Eagles have definitely used more than other teams. The Eagles had more money parked in void years than any other team in football. When you have that hack at your disposal and you're one of the only teams that I guess is smart enough to use it. I mean, the Eagles and the 49ers have outpaced void year spending around the league by a massive amount. When you could do that, then you do it. And I think that more teams are going to start doing it unless the NFL steps in and stops that practice, which is possible. There's some hints coming out of the owners' meetings in Minnesota that there might be some modifications coming to some of these rules. So I wonder if, teams not named the 49ers and the Eagles have complained, or maybe they complained about something else, but we do know that some modifications are being discussed behind the scenes based on some of the reporting coming out of Minnesota at those owners' meetings. You sent John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan a message. You want to pick up Amari Cooper? That's something I thought that I would talk about over the course of this week. Obviously not a rush at this point because the 49ers have OTAs coming up. I think they want to get a gauge of their receiver room between now and the end of this spring program. So you've got a few OTA sessions, a couple mini camp sessions, and then you break for the summer. And at that point, you could huddle up if you're John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and determine if Amari Cooper or Gabe Davis, who has already visited the team facility, is somebody that you're going to want to bring in. How many compensatory picks do the 49ers get next year? They're on track to max out the comp pick formula this next season. So that would mean 4 compensatory picks coming through the player signing process for San Francisco. Jamie thinks that Cooper would be great because the 49ers don't know if Brandon Ayuk will be back. Well, I think the 49ers know better than us what Brandon Ayuk's timetable is going to be. Let's put that out there. I think that from the outside, because we're not privy to, the progress reports on Brandon Ayuk's knee health, and the 49ers obviously want to keep that close to the vest as much as possible. Because of that, there is an assumption that he's going to miss a chunk of the season. There was a time earlier this offseason where it looked more grim than it does now, just based on the tea leaves that we were reading. I think just naturally, when you look at the fact that November was the surgery date and these ACLs, you talk about 9 months to a year, naturally you assume that he's going to miss a chunk of the season. They signed DeMarcus Robinson, but he also might miss a couple games due to suspension, potential suspension at the start of the 2025 season. I've looked at the receiver room several times now and said, yeah, that doesn't look great for the 49ers in terms of receiver depth if they don't have two of their more established veterans in Ayuk and Robinson at the start of the season. You would have to go to guys like Tariq Owens, in theory. Maybe even Isaiah Nair, the rookie, would have an earlier shot at the 53-man roster. And if that's the case, then, yeah, you do need to add a veteran to this team. And I think that's why they hosted Gabe Davis. And it is worth noting that Amari Cooper is still available. Anyway, I wanted to give you guys a quick little Memorial Day look at the Brock Purdy contract situation. And I know that we discussed this when I was in Baltimore the other day, but this is now the focus. We really do need to talk about Brock Purdy's next contract and everything that the 49ers will be doing over the next couple years, especially offensively, will be geared toward getting them and Brock Purdy to that 2028 date unscathed so they can renegotiate this deal. It's actually a goal of both sides for that to happen. So just fascinating stuff when you break this down, when you look at the structure, when you see what the 49ers have in mind in the future. You can always read the tea leaves as you go through this, and the 49ers are in a very, very interesting spot when it comes to Brock Purdy. I think it was a good deal for both sides, and it provides incentive moving forward for both sides to continue to make this work. All right, in the spirit of Memorial Day, prepared something for you guys. I think this could be a lot of fun here on Memorial Day. Why don't you enjoy? 49ers update moves to the road, ballpark edition, Washington, D.C., Memorial Day weekend. Who's going to win the president's race?
Oh, Teddy Roosevelt for sure.
We saw Teddy earlier. He's going to win the president's race. Take a look at him.
So we can make this an NFC West prediction. Teddy Roosevelt, that's the Rams out of the gate first. He's the early favorite. Then Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln. We'll say it's the Seahawks and the Cardinals. 49ers nowhere in sight until that's the 49ers. George Washington on Memorial Day with the flag. The offseason didn't start well for the 49ers, but it ended a lot better, and they're going to be sprinting through to the finish line. Yes, the 49ers will win the NFC West. There's George Washington waving the American flag. He won today at Nationals Park, just like the Giants. It was a fun game. It got a little stressful. We say Giants baseball torture. That was coined back in 2010. 49ers football torture, I think that was coined in 2021. We might have a little bit of that here in 2025. Just because the 49ers are not a complete team by any stretch of the imagination. You normally don't have a complete team in the NFL. That's what makes it so interesting, and that's just a byproduct of the salary cap, is that you're going to have holes out on the field. I think one of the 49ers holes this year will be just the maturation process that they need to go through over the course of the season with all these new players on the defensive side of the ball. You look at the Rams. The reason that some are favoring the Rams is because they drafted this massive class in 2024, big class in 2023. They've had some time now, 2 seasons, to really evolve as a roster into a position where, in many ways, the bulk of that roster has the grizzled veteran edge over the rest of the NFC West. I know that the 49ers are at the top. They've got the A-listers, they've got the experience, but a lot of the draft picks from 2024 and 2025 still have to develop a little bit of metal. But I think that the Rams formula does show us a lot in that you can develop the necessary metal by the end of the season. So I think that the 49ers over the course of this season are going to have to use it as improvement ground. The 49ers have the easiest schedule in the NFC West, and that is very, very significant. Last year, the margins in this division were tiny. The Rams won the division at 10-7, but with a negative point differential. They actually had a worse point differential than Arizona and the Seattle Seahawks. So it was just by the very skin of their teeth that the Rams were able to get it done in 2024. And I don't think that when you look at that margin, it can't overwhelm anybody. There can't be a feeling of, oh boy, this team won last year. They are the odds-on favorite to repeat, to get it done again. This is in any horse race, and then we have to look to see at the improvements and the regressions that the teams might have made over the course of 2024 to 2025, and that's where I go back to my thesis regarding the 49ers. It's impossible for them to have gotten worse, because the defense was already bottom barrel to end last season. That's why they renovated in the first place. That's why they said we can't run it back with this particular group of players, especially in the front seven where they had so many of those injury issues. And I think that offensively, it's funny because everything went wrong for the 49ers last year from an injury perspective. We talk about the separation perspective that's tied into the run game issues, and obviously everything is rooted in the absence of Christian McCaffrey. One could very easily argue that everything went wrong for the 49ers offense. It can't get much worse as far as setup goes, yet they were still a top 10 offense. And a lot of that's because of Brock Purdy, and that's why they went out and paid Brock Purdy just about a week ago, because the floor that you have with Brock Purdy at your quarterback is really, really high. I like to look at quarterbacks, right? Just like we look at presidents in the president's race at the Nationals game, I like to look at the QBs of each team. That's the headliner. And if you're going to handicap the race, then you look at the headliner. Which quarterback is leading each of these teams? The 49ers have the best in Purdy in the entire NFC West. That shouldn't even be up for debate. Matthew Stafford has not been playing his best football ever since that 2021 Super Bowl season. He has passed his prime. Purdy's now making more than Matthew Stafford because he's the better quarterback now, with the brighter future now at age 25. Meanwhile, Purdy's former backup, somebody who never really even had a legitimate chance to beat out Purdy just because there was such a big gap, he's the starter for the Seahawks in Sam Darnold. And then there's Kyler Murray, and people are going to have different thoughts about Murray. He's obviously a very mobile quarterback, but his ceiling has, I think, been limited over his time with Arizona just because he hasn't played as well from the pocket and hasn't delivered the kind of consistency that we've seen from QBs at the top of the division. Somebody was saying the other day that Sam Darnold had all these weapons in Minnesota, and he's not going to have the same weapons in Seattle, so we can't expect as good of a season from him. I would say, Sam Darnold has impressed me in so many ways, and he resuscitated his career with Purdy and Brian Griese in San Francisco. He was still number 14 QBR last year. So just let that sink in. Darnold's very best season, where his team goes 14-3, number 14 in QBR. Purdy's very best season, number 1 in QBR, and his worst one last year was number 7. Still the best in the entire NFC West. So the 49ers have the strongest quarterback in this division. That gives them the immediate edge over the other teams, and then it's just a matter of how much can they improve their defense and their special teams. How much can the other two phases of the game help out? And this division was not a world-beating division by any stretch of the imagination, so I don't think the 49ers need all that much help. When you look at year-over-year improvement, you've got to make it work quick if you're a rookie class in the NFL. And I think that the 2024 49ers rookie class was a great example of, okay, these guys splashed onto the scene. They've got contributors. We already know through the first 4 or 5 rounds, a lot of contributors in that class. So 2025 should be expected to contribute sooner rather than later for San Francisco. For the Rams, the stat that I like to cite is that they were the number 29 defense in football over the first 3 months of last season. With all those rookie draft picks, they had 3 rookie starters, but then they turned into the number 5 defense in football over the last 2 months of the season, including the playoffs. So it happened at the snap of a finger, the maturation of that defense, and they spent the least money out of any team on their defense last year, the Rams did. So I would say that the 49ers can expect a quick maturation in 2025, and you're going to need a quick maturation if you're going to win this division. You notice they drafted ready-made players for different positions, right? You think of CJ West as a one technique. Now, it might be some development needed there, but you see exactly where that skill set, that low center of gravity is going to fit. Mykel Williams, edge opposite Nick Bosa. That's exactly where they need him to fit. Somebody like Nick Martin, weak side or strong side linebacker, and just somebody to complement Fred Warner. That's exactly where he's going to fit. Alfred Collins, taller defensive tackle. He can work next to CJ West, and you know, you just look at the totality of this football team and the totality of this defensive line. He can work within the Chris Kasarik system, which demands different specific skill sets from different linemen working in that wide nine. They already added some pieces like Malik Mustafa last year. He's going to be coming off of the ACL tear, and obviously the two cornerbacks, so you could see the coverage already ahead of the rush for the 49ers. But I do think that even though it seemed that they might have started a little bit behind over the course of this 2025 offseason, the 49ers are more than primed to come back, overtake the lead, and win the NFC West in 2025.